All right, today we're going to hack into the secret world of one of farming's most stubborn pests. And believe me, this isn't just about a bug. It's a full-on detective story about a hidden microbial shield, some really clever defense tactics, and honestly, what it all means for the future of our food. So say hello to the wireworm. Yeah, I know, it doesn't look like much, does it? But this little larva, it's the villain of our story today. These guys live underground for years, munching away on crops like potatoes and maize, causing millions and millions in damage. And the worst part? They are ridiculously hard to get rid of. And you know what? The problem is only getting bigger. The old way of doing things, just blasting them with powerful chemical pesticides, well, that playbook is closing fast. And for good reason, right? We're all worried about the environment and our health, so that leaves us in a tough spot, creating this huge, urgent need for safer, better solutions. Okay, so that brings us right to the heart of it, the stubborn wireworm problem. I mean, how are you supposed to fight a hidden enemy when your best weapons are being taken away? Well, what if the answer wasn't in a lab, but was already out there, in nature? Scientists have started looking at these incredible things called entomopathogenic fungi. Let's just call them EPF. Basically, think of them as nature's own insect assassins. They're fungi that have evolved to specifically target and kill pests, including our little friend the wireworm. Okay, sounds great, right? But here's a catch, and it's a big one. In the lab, these fungi are absolutely lethal. Total game over for the wireworms. But out in a real field, the results are all over the place. I mean, totally unreliable. Sometimes they work, sometimes nothing. So that's the big mystery we're diving into. Why is this natural bioweapon so hit or miss? Right, so this inconsistency is the key, and it leads us straight into the detective work, trying to figure out why this fungal bioweapon misfires. The scientists on this paper had this really cool idea. They thought, hang on, what if the secret to the wireworm's toughness isn't something inside the worm, but something living on it? Like, what if the pest has its own personal, microscopic army protecting it? And that idea brings us to the microbiome. Now, you've probably heard about the human microbiome, right? Well, it turns out insects have them too. And in this case, we're talking about all the tiny bacteria and fungi living together on the wireworm's skin. The best way to think about it, it's like a living, breathing suit of microbial armor. So, if this living armor is real, what's it made of? Let's go ahead and peel back the layers and take a look inside this microbial shield. So, the researchers got to work. They collected 4 different species of wireworms from a bunch of fields. And then, super carefully, they took samples of the microbes living on their skin. These are called ectosymbionts. And they tracked them for weeks to see, who's living there and does that community change over time. And here's the first big whoa moment from their work. This microbial shield, it's not random at all. It turns out each of the 4 wireworm species had its own unique mix of microbes. It's literally like a microbial fingerprint. This strongly suggests that the wireworm is actively choosing and maintaining its own little bodyguard crew. And this really drives home just how critical that shield is. A stable microbiome means a healthy wireworm. Simple as that. Look here, the healthy worms keep their microbiome community nice and steady. But that red line, that's a wireworm that didn't make it. Its microbiome went completely off the rails, just total chaos. So for these pests, keeping that microbial balance isn't just a nice to have. It's literally a matter of life and death. Okay, so where's this armor coming from? Mostly from the soil it lives in. But here's the real kicker. Where the worm grew up has a huge lasting impact. They call it a legacy effect. Get this. For one species, even after they moved it to completely new soil, a whopping 56% of the bacteria on its skin were still from its old home. It's like it carries its home field advantage with it wherever it goes. All right, so this microbial shield is an awesome passive defense, no doubt. But is that it? Is the wireworm just hiding behind its microbe friends, or does it have a few more tricks up its sleeve? Oh, it absolutely does. And this leads us to what I think is one of the coolest parts of this whole study, the wireworm's secret defenses. This is where you see just how smart this little pest really is. The paper uncovered 2 secret weapons. First up is something called immune priming. So, a little bit of exposure to those killer fungi in the soil, it doesn't kill the wireworm. Instead, it acts like a vaccine. It trains its immune system so it's ready for a much bigger fight down the road. And the second one? It's so simple, it's brilliant. Molting. If a nasty fungus starts to grow on its skin, the wireworm can just shed its skin, the whole thing, and walk away, totally clean. How cool is that? And it's not just a theory. The numbers back it up. The wireworms that were primed were way more likely to survive a lethal dose of fungus compared to the ones that weren't. And what's more, when they were under attack, they started molting more often to escape. So these aren't just guesses. They're real, measurable, and super effective defense strategies. So when you put it all together, you realize the wireworm isn't just a passive victim waiting to be attacked. No way. It's an active survivor. It's constantly using that microbial shield, its own immune system, and even its behavior, all to survive in the tough, microbe-filled world under our feet. Okay, so this is all fascinating science, but what does it actually mean for us, for farming? Well, that brings us to the big finale, the future of pest control. You know, the authors of the paper really say it best. They wrote that biocontrol could be improved by, and I'm simplifying here, taking the specific microbiome of each wireworm species into account. Or, to put it even more simply, if you want to beat the pest, you've got to figure out a way around its microbial shield first. And that right there is the huge shift in thinking this paper is proposing. It's a total game changer. Instead of just throwing a bioweapon at the pest and hoping it works, what if we focused on disrupting its armor first? You know, poke a hole in that microbial shield. Could we make it vulnerable to all the natural enemies that are already in the soil, just waiting for a chance? I mean, the potential here is just massive. This kind of thinking could lead to biocontrol that's way more reliable, way more effective. We could seriously be looking at the dawn of a whole new era of farming, a kind of sustainable, microbiome-aware agriculture. And that leaves us with one last, really big idea to chew on. We're not just fighting a pest anymore. We're fighting a pest and its army of microbial allies. Which leads to this incredible question for the future. Could we one day learn to actually hack a pest's microbiome to turn its greatest defense into its biggest weakness, and in doing so, help protect our food supply? Just think about that.